Good morning, students. I welcome you all for the first session of biology. Now, dear students, all of you might have experienced a long journey via road in your own vehicle. What a pleasant moment. But before you start with the journey, what do? You do the maintenance of your vehicle. Now, in this maintenance of your vehicle, what all you do? You check the fuel, you check the tire, and so on and so forth. Now, why do you do this? You do this so that your journey goes very smooth. There are no hurdles. So that I can, in short, say that the vehicle will sustain your journey. Sustain means it will support your journey. It will help your journey to keep on going. Now, human beings are living organisms, and all living organisms have life. Now, in case of human beings, to maintain life, we have to carry out some processes or activities. And these activities which you carry out for maintaining life are called as the life processes. So, students, today we start with chapter number 6 of biology, life processes. First of all, we need to define what is a life processes. Life processes are the activities or processes occurring in a living organism to sustain life. As I mentioned before, sustain means to support or to keep going. So it helps in supporting life. It helps in the smooth functioning of the life. Now, what are the examples of life processes? Now, life processes includes activities like nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion. From your lower class knowledge, you know that a nutrition is a process of obtaining the food. Now, after you obtain the food, that food need to be broken down to liberate energy. And the process in which the food is broken down to liberate energy will be a process called as respiration. Now, after respiration, whatever is there that need to be circulated in the body, and that process will be called as circulation. So, after carrying out the processes like nutrition, respiration, and circulation, now the body has to throw away the waste, because these processes will produce certain waste, and throwing out the waste of the body will be called as excretion. So these are the main 4 life processes. I repeat, examples of life processes: nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion. Now, let's go to study today the nutrition in detail. So let's define nutrition. What is nutrition? Nutrition is the process of obtaining food and converting them into simpler absorbable form, because whatever you eat are very big things. They are the solid things. Like for example, you are eating a roti or a chapati. You are eating a roti or chapati, it is quite big, and our cells are microscopic. So will a big chapati enter into a small cell? No. Now it is very essential that whatever you eat should be broken down into very simpler forms so that it can easily diffuse into the cell. Now what do you mean by diffusion? Diffusion means passing it into the cell, because every cell is bounded by a plasma membrane. So this digested food has to cross the plasma membrane and should enter into the cytoplasm, so that whatever is there, the food is digested food is there, that can be utilized by the cell. Now, nutrition is a characteristic feature of both plants as well as animals. Now we are talking so much about nutrition. We have defined nutrition, that it is the process of obtaining food. Now, why do we need to obtain food? Now, we need to obtain food because food provides us with nutrients. What are nutrients? Nutrients are the substances which provides nourishment and helps in the growth and maintenance of life. So, if we have to sustain and support our life, we require nutrients. And we get nutrients by the process which is called as nutrition. Okay. Now, at the same time, nutrients provides us with energy. Now, can you name some nutrients? Okay, I'll see. Examples of nutrients is carbohydrates, proteins and fats. All of you may be knowing that carbohydrates provides us with energy. Whenever you are tired on a sports day, you are about to faint, what are you given? You are given a cup of glucose water. Why? Now that is because glucose provides us with energy. So glucose is an example of carbohydrate, and that carbohydrate is providing us with energy. The nutrients helps in the cell growth and repair. The cell has to grow. If the cell grows, the organism will grow. And when the cell is growing, organism is moving around, there are chances that the organism experiences a wound. Now that wound needs to be repaired. For repairing the wounds, again you require the nutrients. Now this nutrients increases the resistance of our body. Resistance of our body towards what? Towards the disease causing organisms. So it improves your immunity. Now let us now go to the modes of nutrition. Now modes of nutrition can be broadly classified into two types, as the autotrophic mode of nutrition and the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now let's go to autotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition, autotrophs, they are often called as the self-feeders. Now why do we call them as the self-feeders? We call them as the self-feeders because they can prepare their own food. Now, these autotrophic organisms are again classified into two types. That is, the organisms which show photosynthetic mode of nutrition and another organism which show the chemosynthetic type of nutrition. Now, as the word itself suggests, photosynthetic nutrition. Photo means light. Light means it is related to sun. And the energy which we obtain from the sun is the solar energy. So in case of the photosynthetic mode of nutrition, the organisms utilize the solar energy, that is a light energy, and the chlorophyll and water, and prepares its food. Now, you can see here in this diagram, you can see the sun supplying the sunlight. You can see the leaf is taking up the carbon dioxide. You can see that the roots are providing the water. So with the help of sunlight, carbon dioxide and water, it will synthesize its food and store it in the leaf. And the food which is synthesized by the plants is in the form of carbohydrates, which are first stored in the leaf. Then if there is excess amount of carbohydrate, the plant may either store it in the root, or like for example carrot, or it can either store it in the fruit. So this is your photosynthetic nutrition. Photosynthetic nutrition, example, plants. When I say plants, we have already studied in 9th standard. Plants means it will include algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, angiosperm. All the plants are example of photosynthetic organisms. Now we will go to the next type of nutrition, that is chemosynthetic mode of nutrition. Chemosynthetic nutrition. Now in case of the chemosynthetic or nutrition, the organisms, they prepare their food using the energy from inorganic substances. Now inorganic substances like that of nitrogen or sulfur. Now example of this chemosynthetic organism is sulfur bacteria and nitrogen fixing bacteria. Often when we pass by a drainage, often we get a particular smell of the hydrogen sulfide. Now we get the smell of hydrogen sulfide because there is a bacteria which is utilizing sulfur to prepare its own food. When it prepares sulfur to prepare its own food, at that time it releases a gas called hydrogen sulfide, which has got a nasty smell. So here the organism is preparing its food or deriving its energy from the inorganic element, that is the sulfur. Next example you have is that of rhizobium. All of you may be familiar with rhizobium. Now rhizobium is the nitrogen fixing bacteria which helps in the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrites and nitrates and provides it to the plant. Now here we have a diagram of your chemosynthesis. Now here you can see that from the soil the bacteria is taking the nitrogen, converting it into nitrites and nitrates, and it is providing it to the plant. The plant in turn is providing food and shelter to this bacteria, because of which we often call them as a symbiotic type of bacteria. Now let us come to the second mode of nutrition, that is the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now heterotrophic mode of nutrition is a nutrition in which the organisms can never prepare their own food. They are dependent upon other organisms for their food. Example of heterotrophic nutrition includes saprophytic nutrition. In saprophytic nutrition, the organisms obtains its food from dead and decaying matter. Example is that of fungi like mushroom, or fungi like the mucor or rhizopus, which grows on dead and decaying bodies. Now you have an image over here of mushrooms in which you can see that the mushroom is growing on a cow dung. Now when the cow dung will undergo decay, is that a cow dung under the atmospheric conditions of moisture and a particular temperature will start getting decayed. Now this decaying cow dung will mix with the soil, and in this soil we see the luxuriant growth of mushrooms. So examples of saprophytic mode of nutrition, that is mushrooms. Now let's come to the next slide, that is the parasitic mode of nutrition. Now parasites, what are parasites? They are the organism which survives on the body of other living organisms. Now why are they surviving on the body of other living organisms? Because they are dependent upon the digested food of other organisms. Like, for example, you might have heard about the different type of intestinal worms, like that of the tapeworm, like that of the roundworms. Now, these worms are found in the intestine and cause diseases in case of human beings. Now, this tapeworm and roundworm are parasitic to such an extent that they do not have their digestive system. They tend to feed upon the digested food of the human being, because the digested food enters into the intestine and they easily absorb it into their body. Now, the next example of the parasitic nutrition is that of Cuscuta. Cuscuta, you can see in this image many of the yellow lines you can see. Now, these yellow lines are actually the plants. Now, they are yellow in color. Because they are yellow in color, they cannot carry out photosynthesis. Since they cannot carry out photosynthesis, they are dependent upon the host plant. Now, what is a host? Host is any organism which provide nutrition and shelter to a parasite. Now, students, the next example is that of leech. Next example is that of leech. Here you can see the diagram of leech. Now leech is an ectoparasite. Ectoparasite means the parasite which will survive outside the body. Now the leech has got a specialized structure which are called as the suckers. By means of a sucker, you can see it has got a sucker here. By means of a sucker, it gets attached to the host body and sucks the blood. Now let us come to the third type of the heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and that is the holozoic nutrition. Now in case of holozoic nutrition, the organism feeds on the dead, feeds upon solid complex organic matter. Now the solid organic matter, complex organic matter includes plants as well as animals. Now those organisms which feed upon plants are called as the herbivores. Example, goat and deer. Now carnivores, they also feed upon the solid complex substances. So example is lion which feeds upon the flesh. Now let's go to the next type of the holozoic mode of nutrition, and that is the omnivores. So omnivores are those organisms which feed upon plants as well as animals. Example is that of human beings, chimpanzee, bear, so on and so forth. Now holozoic nutrition is not only shown by bigger organisms, but it is also shown by unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms like that of amoeba shows holozoic mode of nutrition. Now, in this holozoic mode of nutrition which is carried out by the amoeba, there are several steps. Step number 1 is ingestion. So, you can see the diagram over here. Now, in this diagram, you can say that first of all, let's define ingestion is the intake of food, solid complex food. So you can see by means of the pseudopodia, this amoeba is trying to engulf the food. Can you see the formation of the food vacuole and the food entering into the food vacuole? Now, after the process of ingestion, that is food is taken in a vacuole which is called as the food vacuole, we carry out the next step, and that next step is digestion. Now in digestion, inside the food vacuole, what is there? That complex organic solid food is broken down into the simpler one by using enzymes. So by means of enzyme, those complex substances are getting converted to simpler form so that they can enter into the cytoplasm. So the next step after ingestion is digestion, and digestion is nothing but the conversion of complex food into simpler forms by enzymes. Now the next step is absorption. Now can you see that after the digestion, the food has been absorbed. You can see the arrows there in the cytoplasm. By means of this arrow, we are showing that the food has been supplied to the entire cytoplasm. Because why are we specifying cytoplasm? Because the amoeba is a unicellular organisms. Now, so what is absorption? It is nothing but the passing of simpler digested food into the blood in case of a multicellular organism like human being, whereas into the cytoplasm in case of amoeba. Now, next students we are going to study is assimilation. Now, in the next diagram, that is assimilation, the absorbed food is, or the absorbed nutrients is utilized by the amoeba, and when it will form a part of its cytoplasm, since it is forming a part of its cytoplasm, the amoeba tends to show the growth. So what is assimilation? It is a process by which whatever digested food is there, after entering into the cytoplasm, it will become a part and parcel of the organism's body. This process is called as assimilation. Now, so assimilation, absorb food nutrients is stored and utilized for synthesis. Because of the synthesis of cytoplasm, the amount of cytoplasm will increase and the amoeba will show the growth. Now, let's go to the last step, and in the last step is nothing but egestion. So we saw that amoeba was taking in food. Later on we saw that the food is getting digested. After digestion we saw that the food is absorbed in the cytoplasm. After getting absorbed in the cytoplasm, we saw that the food is assimilated to form a part of the cytoplasm, because of which the cytoplasm will grow and the amoeba tends to increase in size. Now after using the food, there will be some undigested, some unwanted part of the food, and we need to to remove this undigested unwanted part out of the body, and the process by which we remove the undigested part out of the body is called as egestion. You can see that egestion, the vacuole slowly it is coming towards the periphery of the cell and the undigested food is being expelled out. Okay, so these are the steps in the Holozoic mode of nutrition. So we saw the steps like ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion in amoeba. The same steps goes in case of paramecium as well as in case of human beings. Now the next done is we are studying the nutrition of paramecium. Now students, it involves the same steps as egestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. Now here, in case of the paramecium, the locomotory organ is by small hair-like structures which are called as the cilia. So I have marked the cilia over here. Now cilia does not only helps in locomotion but also helps in driving the food into the groove which is called as the oral groove. Through the oral groove, it will enter into the cytoplasm and it will form the food vacuole. After the food enters into the food vacuole, similar steps like that of amoeba, that is digestion by means of enzyme and then absorption of the food into the cytoplasm, then assimilation and egestion will take place. Now, let's go to the next one, and that is the nutrition in case of human beings. Now, human beings, we eat, as I told before, we consume chapati, we consume roti, we consume bhaji, we eat rice. All these are what? Solid. They are complex. They are organic substances. So, we also fall into the category of which nutrition? The Holozoic mode of nutrition. Now, human body is complex and it is multicellular. Since it is complex and multicellular, we require a special system for nutrition which is called as the digestive system. Now, digestive system includes two parts. It includes the alimentary canal as well as the associated glands. Now, the alimentary canal. The alimentary canal is a narrow tube which has an anterior opening which is called as the mouth, and a posterior opening which is called as the anus. Now, along with this alimentary canal, we have associated glands. The associated glands include the salivary glands, the liver and the pancreas. Now, we will start with the first organ, that is mouth. Now, mouth forms the anterior opening of the alimentary canal. I have already pointed out over there. It is guarded by two fleshy lips and it is bounded by cheeks. The cavity inside the mouth is called as the buccal cavity. Inside the buccal cavity, it encloses the teeth as well as the fleshy tongue. The teeth will help in chewing of the food, whereas the tongue will help in circulating it to the different parts of the buccal cavity so that it results in the formation of a round structure, which is called as the bolus. Now, from the mouth, the food enters into the pharynx. Now, pharynx often is not labeled in the digestive system because if I go to define pharynx, the pharynx is a common opening for food as well as air. Since it is helping in the passage of food and air, it forms a part of your respiratory system and digestive system. Now, food from the pharynx enters into a narrow tube which is called as the esophagus. So, esophagus is a narrow muscular tube. Now, this narrow muscular tube, the esophagus, will help in the conduction of food into the stomach. The esophagus is roughly around 25 centimeters long. The food passes through the esophagus by a process called as the peristalsis. Now, from the esophagus, the food enters into the next organ, that is the stomach. Now, the stomach is a highly muscular bag. It is present below the diaphragm. The stomach helps in the digestion of the food. Especially the proteins get digested in the stomach. A protein digesting enzyme is a characteristic feature of stomach. The second characteristic or feature of stomach is that the stomach shows the presence of regulators which are called as the sphincters. We have two sphincters, one at the anterior end near the esophagus and rest at the lower end of the stomach, which regulate the movement of digested food. Now, the next organ is the longest organ you can see in case of the digestive system, and the long tube we have is the small intestine. Now, the small intestine is around 6 meters long. Now, this small intestine is 6 meters long. It is so long because there is maximum digestion and absorption which takes place in the small intestine. The small intestine, which is 6 meters long, is folded and kept in the abdominal region. Now, from the small intestine, the food passes into the large intestine. From the large intestine, the absorption of water will only take place there, and afterwards the food is thrown out through an opening which is called as the anus. So, we have described about the alimentary canal. Now we need to learn about the associated glands, salivary glands which produces saliva, liver which produces bile, pancreas which produces pancreatic juice which help in digestion. Now in the next period we will study about the action of the secretions of these different type of glands. At the same time we will discuss about the length of a small intestine and large intestine of a carnivore as well as an omnivore and herbivore. Now at the end of the session, students, you are having some assignment questions which you have to solve. At the same time, to support my teaching, I have given you the link of certain videos. The videos will show the food intake by paramecium, amoeba and human beings, the food intake and digestion. So do watch this wonderful videos and enjoy the lesson. Thank you.